Welcome to Mystic Recap. In 2013, scientists stumbled upon a mysterious glacier that was leaking a red fluid and causing local wildlife and insects to mutate. Get ready to experience the intense journey of blood culture. Let's dive into the story. The world is facing devastating climate crises, and experts predict the North Pole will be ice-free in just a decade and the alpine glaciers will disappear entirely. Humanity is contributing to these changes, and life will never be the same again. Deep in the Austrian Alps, at an elevation of 3,500 meters, lies the Glaciers research station. Here, we find an alcoholic technician named Janik, his trusty dog Tinny, and a team of 3 scientists who are monitoring climate change. After another rough night, Janik wakes up to a loud noise and begins a new day at the research station. One of the scientists, Bertha, insists on getting Janik's help. Despite his reservations, the technician heads to the main base and disables the alarm. They discover that one of the weather stations, located just a few hundred meters away, has malfunctioned and needs immediate repair to accurately track climatic readings. Janik and the team of scientists don't have the best relationship, but he's obligated to follow their orders. However, when he goes outside, he notices that his dog Tinny is acting strangely. The dog is fixated on a single point in the sky, as if it's seen something among the snow-covered mountains, and refuses to respond to Janik's calls. Later in the movie, Janik and researcher Falk prepare to embark on a mission to repair the weather station high in the mountains. As they make their preparations, Falk tries to learn more about the distant personality of the technician. Despite spending over 5 years in isolation at the station, few can endure such harsh conditions. Janik is unwilling to reveal the true reason for his seclusion in the mountains, but mentions that he knows the station and surrounding terrain better than anyone. Together, the men and Tinny journey up the rocky slopes, navigating their way to the weather station. Suddenly, Tinny jumps out of her seat and runs off, barking in an unknown direction. Janik and the scientist follow Tinny and make a shocking discovery. They find a rock covered in a red bacterial plaque. Excited by the rare find, Falk decides to collect samples for further analysis. While Janik works on repairing the transformer box, he hears a muffled howl coming from a nearby cave. Tinny, however, is drawn to the noise and investigates the cave. She finds a badly injured fox, breathing heavily and something actively moving in its womb. Suddenly, a frantic barking from Tinny echoes through the cave, causing Janik to hit his head on the transformer box in surprise. In response, Falk quickly runs down the slope. Janik rushes to his injured pet, finding a nasty wound on its stomach. The dog gazes at the dead fox's mangled body nearby. Suddenly, eerie sounds echo from within the cave, and Janik decides to take his pet and leave instead of investigating. At the main base, scientists scrutinize samples of the unusual glacier under a microscope and make a shocking discovery: a living organism with cells dividing and multiplying at a rapid pace. Bertha insists that Janik accompany her to the glacier to gather fresh samples and secure them in an airtight container. But the technician refuses to venture into the mountain's darkness at night, for the fear of encountering the vicious fox that has taken refuge in the cave. The scientists are dissatisfied with Janik's actions, thinking he may be having hallucinations after excessive drinking, and there is no real threat in the cave. However, they decide to delay their trip to the glacier until the next day, when the Minister of Ecology, Bodisek, is scheduled to visit the station with a committee. The scientists plan to keep the bizarre discovery a secret. Janik disagrees, feeling a moral obligation to inform higher authorities of the events. Upon arrival, Bodisek is accompanied by a group of reporters, including Janik's ex-girlfriend Tanya, who now works as a geologist. She was previously part of the scientific team stationed in the Alps 3 years ago. While the scientists try to convince Janik to keep the cave's discovery under wraps, the technician remains steadfast in his decision to inform the guests. The visit by the minister and the accompanying reporters is merely a publicity stunt, and everyone is expected to play their role. Harold provides Janik with a dose of morphine to keep him asleep and not interrupt the plans. However, Tanya radios Janik and announces her arrival, causing the technician to be thrilled and the scientists to be worried he may reveal the existence of the rabid fox to his ex-girlfriend Tanya. Tanya informs Janik of her plan to join the minister and reporters on a dawn trip to the mountains to capture picturesque scenes. Excited to see his former lover, Janik takes more morphine and falls asleep. In the middle of the night, Janik wakes up to the sound of someone rummaging through the garbage and calls Harold for a rifle. However, Harold does not respond. Suddenly, a monstrous creature appears and terrorizes the technician. The scientists run to the sound and Janik urges them to hide. He reports seeing a hybrid fox with horns on its head. Despite Janik's strange behavior, the scientists do not take his claims seriously, attributing them to the harmful effects of morphine and alcohol. Janik is convinced that he is correct and wants to report the situation to the authorities as soon as possible. However, a disagreement between the scientists and the technician leads to a brief scuffle. Once the situation has settled, Harold tries to convince Janik to rest and postpone the capture of the mythical fox until the following day. Feeling defeated, the technician takes his injured dog and retreats to his cabin. Before drifting off to sleep, Janek shares a story with Harold about a hunter who lived in the area. When the hunter passed away, Tinny was found severely injured next to his body. Tanya and the technician took the dog in and nursed it back to health. Throughout the night, Janek experiences nightmares about the monster. In the morning, he contacts Tanya via radio and warns her of the potential danger on their route. However, Tanya does not believe Janek's claims and tells the crew to prepare for the ascent. Janek decides to accompany Bertha to the Red Glacier. When they arrive, they discover that the red bacterial growth has vanished. Bertha decides to drill into the ice block to collect samples, while Janek steps aside to use the restroom. Suddenly, one of the rocks begins to move due to the dampness. Upon further investigation, Janek discovers that it is actually a mutant beetle that attacks anyone who disturbs it. He kicks the beetle, sending it bouncing and hiding in its shell. Meanwhile, the minister and their group are on their way to the station, with Tanya excitedly sharing information about climate change research with reporters. The group stops at a picturesque slope for a photo session. Unfortunately, the photographer is bitten by a giant mosquito carrying harmful bacteria. Back at the base, the scientists examine the mutant bug, causing a stir as the creature suddenly moves. However, Bertha explains that it's just a vegetative reaction. Analysis of the biomaterials from the mutant bug reveals that it contains the same microorganisms as the Red Glacier. Bertha concludes that the monster is a hybrid of flea and fox, with the ability to recombine and mix DNA to create a variety of infected animal hybrids. Janek is worried as he realizes that the contaminated microorganisms from the Red Glacier may have entered the fox and caused a genetic hybridization. He questions the potential harm that this hybrid may bring if it were to infect a human. Rita adds to Janek's concern by suggesting that if a human were to be infected, it could result in a terrifying creature like a werewolf. Janek returns to his cabin and inspects Tinny's wound, where he discovers that something is growing inside. He contacts Tanya and urges her to change their route, as it goes through the contaminated area. Janek is faced with a difficult decision as he realizes Tinny is infected and must put him out of his misery. The man is torn as he looks into Tinny's eyes, filled with sorrow and fear. Meanwhile, Tanya decides to heed Janek's warning and suggests changing their route. The minister agrees, and Tanya informs Janek. Through the radio, Tanya hears Tinny's whimpers in the background and pleads with Janek to wait for her so they can escape together. The man is relieved to have his beloved pet's execution postponed. The photographer, who has been bitten by mosquitoes, is feeling worse but attributes it to just being tired. Not far from the minister's group, a scared young girl is being pursued by a terrifying mutant eagle. Suddenly, the tourist trips over a rock and falls. A hybrid monster catches up to the girl and pierces her leg with its huge stinger. Janek is preparing to meet Tanya and the others, causing concern among the scientists. They don't want the technician to tell the minister about their recent discovery of a dangerous bacteria, as it could cause public panic. The scientists believe they are on the cusp of a revolutionary scientific breakthrough. They try to convince Janek to give them more time to complete their research, but he stands firm. He makes it clear that he is not intimidated by their threats and sets off. Along the way, he discovers the body of a mountain goat with its stomach exploded. The man becomes cautious as he realizes the hybrids are closing in on the station. The bitten photographer's fever worsens and the group decides to take a break. The bite on his neck continues to grow and pulse. Tanya urges them to keep moving and get to the station as soon as possible. Suddenly, the injured hiker, who miraculously fought off the flying mutant, rushes to the group's aid. The girl collapses in terror and is unable to speak. The hybrid eagle begins circling above them, searching for its next victim. The minister's guard quickly steps in to protect the minister and tries to shoot the bird, but it disappears behind the high slopes. However, the respite was short-lived. The mutant soon attacks the guard, mortally wounding him despite the man's efforts to fight it off. Chaos ensues among the delegation. Minister Bodisek, tearful, crawls over to the fallen security guard, with whom she had a close relationship. The bitten photographer flees into the mountains. Janek hurries to their aid and safely escorts the remaining group to the station. At this time, Harold is nervously rehearsing a meeting with important guests, but he can't seem to charm them. The panicked delegation rushes into the station and quickly barricades themselves inside. They place the injured tourist on a table and attend to her wounds with makeshift supplies. Unfortunately, not everyone makes it to the station. Irene, one of the reporters, realizes her partner is missing and becomes frantic. The minister calmly comforts her and assures her that he will be back soon. Tanya asks Janek to call for help, but the only satellite phone has been taken by two scientists who went to the weather station. Harold quietly informs the technician that Falk and Brita will not be back until the morning after the minister's delegation leaves. The scientist, feeling guilty for his actions, tries to make excuses for himself. Janek is unimpressed and delivers a slap to the man for putting everyone's lives in peril. With no other options, the minister suggests using her phone to call for help, but the high altitude interferes with mobile communication. She recalls that the late security guard had a satellite phone and vents the reporter from getting away with his mistakes. As Janek hears his dog barking, he fears the worst and rushes to his cabin, bracing for impact. An irate Tanya interrogates Harold about the information the scientists kept from them. Falk and Brita finally make it to the weather station but realize they have left the key at the main base. Both scientists play the blame game until Falk picks the lock. Once inside, Brita eagerly opens the container of the mutant bug they brought for research. However, the hybrid was only feigning death and attacked Brita's face as soon as she opens the lid. The scientist frantically runs out into the street, trying to free herself from the mutant's grip. Janek's partner tries to save the woman who is being attacked by a mutant bug, but the only solution they come up with is hitting her on the head with a rock. Though the bug peels away from the woman, her face is left severely damaged. Janek rushes to comfort his beloved pet who is in pain. Tanya, who has heard about the mutant bugs from Harold, enters the house. Tanya is greeted by Tiny, who recognizes her, which Janek isn't too fond of. Tanya had left them before and Janek is still wary of her. He shows her the dog's belly where something is moving and Tanya understands without a word, hands him a syringe with a lethal injection to put the hopelessly ill dog to sleep. Janek reluctantly decides to put the pet out of its misery and both he and Tanya struggle with the loss of their mutual companion. Tanya then confesses to Janek that she was pregnant with his child, but tragically the baby didn't survive. The news is a blow to Janek, who had briefly regained hope. The minister is livid with the scientists for not informing her of the danger. Harold tries to defend himself with weak excuses and even suggests that the mutant eagle attack was simply an accident. The minister loses her cool and physically assaults Harold. Meanwhile, Janek and Tanya return to the station. The technician is determined to find the scientists and retrieve the satellite phone. Tanya tries to talk him out of it, warning him of the danger, but he is resolute. Suddenly, Falk bursts into the station, looking frightened and begging to secure the door from a mutant hybrid of a mountain goat and an insect that's trying to break in. Janek quickly drives the insect away and secures the door. The technician questions Falk about the satellite phone and Brita. Falk admits that Brita has the phone but lies about her whereabouts, claiming she fled into the mountains after encountering a mutant. The persistent monster continues its attempts to break down the door, causing fear among those gathered. The mutant proves to be incredibly strong, causing the station to shake with its powerful blows. Minister Bodisek desperately screams at the beast, hoping to scare it away. For a moment, the goat stops, but then returns with its mutant partner, the eagle. The creatures break into the station, and Janek tries to fight them off with his bare hands. The minister comes to his aid and drills a hole into the mutant goat's head by using a drill. The group watches in suspense and breathes a sigh of relief when she successfully wins the battle. The group regains their composure and recovers from the traumatic experience. Harold indulges in a monologue, expressing his inner turmoil. Tanya informs the minister that the helicopter that was supposed to transport the delegation will not arrive until the next day at noon. The rescue team is unaware that the group is at the research station, and their search could take several more hours. One member of the delegation wisely points out that the rescue team is unprepared for the dangers that await them in the mountains. Tanya and Janek are called to action when a lost hiker needs their help. However, they face a new challenge as they must confront mutants without any weapons. Time is running out as the infected hiker's condition may not improve by morning. In order to save her, they need a satellite phone and head to the weather station. The technician does not believe Falk's story about Brita's escape and forces him to join Tanya and Janek on the mission. Meanwhile, the others take refuge at the base and notice a strange movement under the skin of an eagle-wounded tourist's leg. Harold warns that the girl is infected and a mutant is growing inside her. The group panics and is about to flee, but the minister steps in and suggests a solution. She bravely extracts the harmful bacterium and throws it into the furnace. She then seals the wound on the girl's leg, causing her to scream in pain. Despite the nature of the operation, it proves to be successful, and the camper survives. On their journey, Janek expresses his doubts about the hiker's survival, which angers Tanya. Falk sees this as an opportunity to escape, but Janek quickly catches him at gunpoint. The minister's group is celebrating their successful operation, but their joy is short-lived. Suddenly, a photographer infected with a hybrid mosquito bursts into the station, seeking help. The insects begin to hatch from his head and chaos ensues. Harold sets himself on fire and runs outside. The minister locks the door and comes up with a new plan. When they arrive at the weather station, they find no sign of Bertha. Falk takes advantage of the situation to reflect on his actions. Discovering a gun on the ground, Janek picks it up and places it in his pocket. The trio then sets out to explore the ominous red cave and is horrified to find the mutilated body of a scientist inside. Suddenly, the scientist, Falk, aims his gun at the couple and demands they hand over the weapon. Tanya tries to outwit Falk, but he viciously hits her in the eye with his gun's buttock. Tanya falls to the ground in agony, screaming in pain, while Falk threatens the defenseless Janek with his weapon. Out of the shadows, a monster emerges and attacks the scientist. Startled, Falk shoots into the air and the cave is illuminated by a bright flash from the signal fire. The hybrid of fox and spider tears into Falk's body, devouring him from the inside out. With the mutant now turning its attention to Tanya and Janek, the two are forced to run for their lives. The creature quickly catches up and tries to attack, but Tanya valiantly fights back, plunging a rock hammer into the monster's carcass. Together, the pair successfully defeat the mutant and embrace in relief. Under the body of Bertha, they discover a phone and use it to call for help. Spotting a column of smoke at the main base, Tanya and Janik hurry to check on the others. To their sadness, they learn that the girl did not survive the dangerous night. The sound of a rescue helicopter is heard overhead, and the group rushes towards it with joy. When Tanya enters Janik's cabin, she is shocked to find a disturbing hybrid of a dog and a man. Janik wants to destroy the hybrid, but Tanya stops him. She holds the creature in her arms, making it clear with her gaze that she intends to take it with her. The exhausted team evacuates the research station, and as they ascend in the helicopter, Tanya and Janik observe another huge glacier turning red. The quiet whimpering of the hybrid in Tanya's backpack fills the air, causing Tanya and Janik to look around with fear and apprehension, uncertain of what the future holds. So, what are your thoughts on this movie? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more movie reviews and recaps. Until next time.